Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's episode of Trending, brought to you by Iconic Coffee. Head over to shop.iconic.com and use the code TRENDING to get 10% off your order. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning. That went downhill. You opened up really bright to talk about the coffee, and as soon as my name came in, you almost like died inside. But thank you. Good morning.
It's because I know what's coming, mate.
All right. Yeah.
I know where we're going, and it's dark, unfortunately.
Well, it's still dark, unfortunately, after all of this time. When is this going to stop? More than 100 people die of hunger in Gaza, including 80 children, say Palestinian officials. And obviously the IDF and that lot will refute that, but they're not the most trustworthy people in the world, are they? Israel controls all supplies entering Gaza. I mean, how and why? Has denied it is responsible for food shortages. How can you deny that? You've taken all the responsibility. You want the responsibility without the responsibility. For the first time since the war in Gaza, it's not a war, began in October 2023, Palestinian officials have said that dozens of people are dying of hunger. At least 101 people are known to have died of malnutrition during the conflict, including 80 children, most of them in recent weeks, according to officials. As you can see the pictures of the ladies there trying to get food for, I'm assuming they're kids, and they do look, they look malnourished. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said malnourishment is soaring and starvation is knocking on every door in Gaza, describing the situation as a horror show. I could go on, but Jay, it's just how is this being allowed to go on? Like, me and you don't have any power over it other than to report on it and continue to report on it and keep that circulating, like the Epstein files, in a sense of not letting them cover it up and distract us with other things and keeping it in the news. That's, our role here. That's all the best that we can do. But why is this being allowed on that level? Surely one person and one group of, let's have it right, terrorists, IDF, can't get away with this if they're not allowed to.
I mean, mate, I struggle now with this. I struggle with adjectives to describe how abhorrent what's going on is, and it really challenges me to even not just break down, not just fly off the handle and start flipping tables at the anger and disgust at what you see now on a daily basis, and the lack of reaction to it. More people in the media, in the governments, in the online world were outraged by some guy chanting death to the IDF than they were about this. And yeah, that guy was a bit of an idiot, but look at what is happening. Can you not see why people are so angry? Can you not see why people are resorting to doing outrageous things to get attention to the issue? Because by not doing that, it's not getting anything. There's other stories out there today about the same conflict of aid workers being stripped and searched by the IDF, about aid workers being blocked from entering, the targeting of civilians that are waiting for food, as well as the blocking of food, which you're talking about. Where's anyone's humanity? And I think what they've done here, they've done this very, very cleverly, but from a sick, justification, is they've basically made people not feel sorry for the Palestinians through a number of reasons. One, we said, for a few times on this show, they were going to make Free Palestine the new Allah Akbar, which they have done in many ways. And if you talk about being a supporter of Palestine, then you must be a terrorist. That literally has been a connection in people's minds that's been made. You've seen people in the media saying, justifying whatever they have to justify to keep the perception that Israel is the one on the right side of this conflict going. They're finding it a lot more difficult than they once were, but they're still trying. And with everything, particularly in this country, I'm going to speak to this country's example, with what we're seeing with immigration into this country, particularly Muslim immigration into this country, whether that be legal or illegal, people associate those with all Muslims and therefore associate those with people in Gaza. And that's why I think there's a lack of empathy as well. They're not the same. And that's why, we said this on a call yesterday, didn't we, mate? Is that you have to be objective when you look at every single issue, because very rare, if any other people out there in this space are supporting the Palestinians while also talking about the fact that you need to control immigration. You generally are on one side or the other. So the people that think, everybody needs to leave, they're all pro-Israel. and the people on the other side that think, most of the people that think the Palestinians need to be supported, I'll let everybody in. We're kind of in the middle, saying actually both these things are disgusting. But what the IDF are doing is I don't think there's any more adjectives we can use that we haven't already. It's a genocide. It's war crimes of the highest order. It's something that every single person on this earth, every single person, particularly in the media, that is allowing this to go away unchallenged, needs to, the blood's on their hands. You need to be ashamed of yourself. We should be ashamed as a human race. This is being allowed to happen. This wasn't centuries ago when nobody knew it was happening. Everyone knows this is happening. Everyone knows this is happening, and it's still just being allowed to happen.
Yeah, it's been allowed to happen because there's people in the alternative media and the mainstream media that are purposely ignoring the information as to why it's happening.
Yep.
People are like, why? They don't just want a piece of land for nothing.
No.
They don't just want to get rid of the Palestinians for nothing. There is a reason for this. And if you carry on ignoring the ideology behind it, then it will get to the point where they won't get what they want because they're lunatics, but all the Palestinians won't be there anymore, put it that way. If you carry on ignoring the ideology that people like us and many others are pointing out behind this whole Greater Israel project, then you are complicit in this. You're purposely ignoring these things and asking the same questions over and over. Hamas, how did they get in? You're not even asking the simple questions, how did they get in? You're not even asking the question of how Netanyahu's openly saying he's propping up Hamas, and even the Times of Israel are talking about how it backfired on them. Did it backfire on them? Did it backfire on them at all? It was the plan. They got what they wanted. It was the plan from the start. It's called infiltration. So if you were not looking to things like the Sabbateans, this ideology for a new Messiah, this biblical narrative that's playing along it, then you are complicit. This is not about anything else other than a agenda to play out biblical prophecy. So you carry on ignoring that, this is going to carry on to the point, and that brings in transhumanism, that brings in AI technology, that brings in living forever and immortality. This is a cult, and as long as people in the mainstream and the alternative media that will be given the platform, because they won't speak about these things, because they'll keep people at a compressed levy, at a cul-de-sac, whether they know it or not, this will carry on. Because it's not about what you're talking about at all.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. And that's why it's continuing, and it has no end in sight, because it's not meant to end. It's only meant to sort of finish when they've achieved what they've wanted, and they're still nowhere near that at the moment. Right, moving on to another conflict. God, we're starting well today. But this is interesting. This is interesting because this same thing is happening in Israel. You don't hear it reported in anything like the same way. We talked about it, me and Gaz did on Monday, about the lack of support for Netanyahu and the fact there's been mass protests against him from Israelis. You're having Israelis burning their conscription documents, refusing to fight in the IDF because they know what they're doing and they know what actually the IDF is all about, and it's got nothing to do with protecting Israel. We're seeing the same thing here in Ukraine. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, I know you're not as big a sports fan as I am, but I was watching a football match and there was a team from Ukraine playing. I think it was Dynamo Kiev. And people were holding up signs going, we want elections. We want elections. Zelensky out, in the crowd. And it got censored, completely censored, because you can't hear that. They want you to believe that every single Ukrainian is behind Zelensky and against Putin. They don't want you to think and realise, actually, is Zelensky even elected? No, he's not. No, he's not anymore. His term ended a long time ago. And this story today is an interesting one that just makes you think a little bit more. Anti-Zelensky protests break out on the streets of Ukraine as the country signs a controversial anti-corruption bill. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has sparked outrage after quietly signing a controversial bill that slashes the independence of the nation's top anti-corruption body. So this comes back to what we've talked about a lot, which is marking your own homework. Isn't it funny that in Israel you've got the same situation here? You've got a massive corruption inquiry against their current Prime Minister Netanyahu, which just gets pushed back and back and back and back. And now we're seeing the same thing over in Ukraine. It hands sweeping new powers to the Prosecutor General's office, who answers to the President, allowing it to seize the control of high-profile corruption investigations from the country's fiercely independent watchdogs. Now, essentially, what this does is exactly what it sounds like it does. It protects the people they want to protect from corruption inquiries. Why would you need to do that if you weren't doing anything wrong? Why would you need to do that if everything was fine? Why would you need to do that if you didn't have things to hide? Well, a simple answer is you wouldn't. Independent means independent of the state, independent of individual people. They outlast elected politicians. They're there the whole time. They should be there to hold everyone to account. Whereas when you've got now a body who actually answer to the prime minister or the president in whatever country, well, what happens if there's an investigation needed into the president? Do you think they're going to be objective? Of course they're not. And that's what this is, because Zelensky's as bent as a two-bob note. Of course he is. Mm-hmm. He's got so much evidence of money laundering, of washing of funds. Where's all this money gone? So much evidence of it. Every time he goes to visit the UK or the US or any other country he fancies, he's taking billions back with him. He's clearly got, he must just have an itchy nose quite a lot, or a bit of a sniffle quite a lot. Well, I think he's got quite an expensive habit there that he has to maintain. He's clearly got so much to answer for. He's clearly not particularly liked by the majority of people in the country. That's why they've not done another election. He's holding on to these draconian powers while this conflict continues. You don't do things like this unless you've got a lot to hide. So this is another example of clearly trying to cover up something that they don't want people to know. If this was happening in any other country that the West saw within the gun sights, if this was happening in Russia, if Putin was doing this, every major Western media outlet would be shouting from the rooftops that this is dictatorship, this is suppression of an objective investigation into whether you're corrupt or not. One news story on this today. One news story. And it's not even calling it out, it's just saying this has happened.
There's a really interesting point, because if Putin was doing this, depending on what I know of how they're all connected, would there be an outrage? Would the media report on that? Because I thought this guy Kolomoisky, and I know you know who this guy is. He's the guy that basically got backed Zelensky into power. He is a Ukrainian-born Israeli billionaire. There you go. Businessman, once considered the leading oligarch in Ukraine. He owns most of the media, basically, the shortness of it all, of the Ukraine. That's why you will not see these things. He's the one, and he's been under corruption charges for a while now. He's the one that's basically got the puppet into power and now controls the media. So what's happening in Israel? The same thing. The guy keeps kicking the can down the road for all his own criminal court cases. Oh, you're at war. As Gaz says, you're always at war. To start another war, go, as you say, kill some Arabs. That's basically what Gaz said the other day, and he's right, is that they distract and they hold on to power. But I believe Putin is doing the same, exactly the same. And I say this because all three are connected to this messianic sect that I'm concerned about, that are behind, at the heart of, but they're not the top of, or the apex of, certainly not, of this Greater Israel project, which is really biblical prophecies. So Zelensky's controlled, in my opinion, by them. He's certainly seen with them a lot. So is Putin, and so is Netanyahu, and so is Trump. So I think they'll allow you to do things and play certain baddies off of goodies, and obviously Putin is the baddie at the moment, until it doesn't quite fit in their narrative of what they want to play out. So that would be really interesting if Putin did the same. But they've got control of the media in all of their countries anyway. Yeah. Putin's had control of the media for a long time in his country. So, the reason why we do what we do is because we're the only ones that can break through that gap and tell you exactly what's going on. And the responsibility we have, and the blessing that we've been given to be able to have these little bits of platforms, is to tell you how it's all connected together. And it is connected together. And this guy owns the media. So Putin, Zelensky, and Trump and Netanyahu, to me, are all part of the same agenda, whether they want to be or not.
Yeah, I agree. I think with Putin, he's clearly the bogeyman. And that's why I say that I think that the reaction would be different. But what's really interesting is obviously Russia is seen and has been seen going back through generations, right back to the Soviet Union, seen as this communist state that's not a democracy, even though they have elections. Putin always wins, and there's obviously a lot of questions about the validity of them. We've seen a lot of the deaths and arrests of political opponents of his over the years. Whereas so people would expect this, I think, from him. They just say it's another notch on what they already expect. Whereas with Ukraine, we're trying to be sold this illusion that Ukraine is this democracy, it's this bastion of freedom. The two colours, the yellow and the blue. The colours of freedom. We see these signs and these posters and T-shirts and stuff that these people are wearing. And it's very, very clear that actually it's the polar opposite of that. And it has been for a long time, hence why there was TV programs not too long ago about Ukraine on fire, about the Nazification of certain regions of Ukraine. So I think this will come as more of a shock to the people who genuinely believe that Ukraine is a democracy, but it comes as a confirmation to the likes of us that actually it's not. And just to finish on this, there's hundreds of protesters, particularly younger people, it seems, across. Even though there's a martial law ban at the moment on public gatherings, around 3,000 people congregated last night in the capital, Kiev, near this theatre, talking about not wanting to return to the times of a previous president, Viktor Yanukovych, who was overthrown in the Orange Revolution all those years ago. Now, Yanukovych was very much a sort of a pro-Russian, let's be friends with Russia, let's get on, which I think most people in Ukraine would probably want rather than what they have right now. But they're protesting against this, arguing exactly what we've talked about, mate, which is that this will stop the Zelensky regime and people associated with it from the same scrutiny that they should be getting if you had an objective, independent corruption body. Because there's so much evidence of corruption in Ukraine, recent and in the not too distant future and past. I'm sure there'll be more questions. And this is, for me, as I say, you don't do this unless you've got something to cover up. Also, I think timing of things like this is really important. It's no accident that this is happening now. Clearly, something's coming down the pipeline that they want to get this out ahead of. We've seen this week the stories about what's his name, Sunak, calling for the general election last year, the day before that injunction against the policy to rehouse Afghans that worked in the war here, just before that was due to come out. So he got the election in, so that got out ahead of that. We've seen that so many times. People get out ahead of what they think is something that's coming their way. So don't be shocked if there's all of a sudden lots of quite high-profile corruption allegations against Zelensky in the coming weeks, days, and months, because you don't do this unless there's a timing and a reason for doing it. So let's talk about AI, which is a nice change from conflict. Rich?
Well, it is and it isn't, because it's part of it. But yes, OpenAI and UK signed deal to use AI in public services. This whole grid is building around us so fast, and it's been there for a while. COVID kind of kicked it off. 9/11 was another point of it. These kind of Pearl Harbors that they need to have to introduce these things, but they need to openly open AI to do it. OpenAI, the firm behind ChatGPT, has signed a deal to use artificial intelligence to increase productivity in the UK's public services. The government has announced it's literally going to be everywhere: bus passes, social credit, ID, digital ID. This is coming faster. We don't want it. People don't want these things. The agreement signed by the firm and the science department could give OpenAI access to government data, your data, and see its software used in education, great, defence, security, and the justice system. These are private entities encroaching and holding power over your government. These are people that you have not elected coming in. This is the technocrats. Technology Secretary Peter Kyle said that AI will be fundamental in driving change, I bet it will, in the UK and driving economic growth. But digital privacy campaigners said the partnership showed this government's credulous approach to big tech's increasingly dodgy sales pitch. The agreement says the UK and OpenAI may develop an information sharing program, as if they don't have these things already. They're just telling you what they're doing already, and they're going to. Yeah, they're telling you what they've already got. They just need your passive, your tacit compliance, or your passive compliance, I think is probably a better term. And will develop safeguards that protect the public and uphold democratic values. So you've got this is the satanic inversion. So you've got an unelected body, OpenAI, Sam Altman, and I'll tell you why he's not someone to be trusted in a minute, coming in, controlling your democratically elected leaders, inverted commas, and then they're arguing that it'll help uphold democracy. It's so ridiculous. Altman. This is this guy. So this is the mindset of Sam Altman, who will be basically having his technology in all of services. Netcalm wants to preserve him for decades, but the process will kill you. Sam Altman is Y Combinator funded this group, and Sam Altman was paid to have his brain cryogenically frozen when he dies. If you ever dreamed of preserving consciousness beyond death and living in the cloud, a new startup has a brain freeze to sell you, as in an episode of Black Mirror. In the latest case of Silicon Valley chasing immortality, there you go again. This is how it fits into this end time prophecy agenda. One of Y Combinator's ventures aims to chemically freeze human brains in order to prevent neural synapses, theoretically also preserving the memories stored there. For just $10,000, Netcalm will embalm your brain, keeping it from decaying for centuries, maybe even millennia, until it can be uploaded. The problem is, right now, if they do it, it'll kill you. So
don't put that in the sales pitch, though. Just leave that bit out.
No. But if you're dying and you're on your way out, you know you've got an end of life issue here. You can climb into the pod, but then have it stored for $10,000, and then you can wake up 300 years later. Now, this is a story basically based on this whole cryogenics thing is based on a story by R.C. Ettinger, who was the father of cryonics. And the story was called The Penultimate Trump. And when you look into it, the guy who was the rich guy that got his brain frozen woke up 300 years later. And then everything he did to everybody else was stored, and he had to relive it done to him in Judgement on the planet Mars. As mad as this sounds, this is the mindset behind Sam Altman, who's going to have his AI in your bus. Just let that compute for a minute.
That's pretty dark, isn't it?
It is. It's not good, is it?
No. Jeez. It's such a crazy jump from where AI is now and what it does to what it's meant to do and what it's really all about. You know, we've always talked about there being kind of two agendas, there being the sales pitch and the public justification for doing something, and then the real one behind the scenes. But I don't think with any other thing, any other event or any other kind of agenda, there is such a difference between what we're seeing as the public justification for doing something versus the real one. The gap, the polarization between the two is extraordinary when it comes to AI. You know, it's being sold as this way of keeping people, in hospitals, keeping people alive that would have died, a way of helping people interact with the world in a simpler way, a case of just making everyone's life better and simpler and more convenient, when it's actually about the end times. It's actually about literally destroying humanity as we know it. It sounds like a Doctor Who / Star Trek / Star Wars kind of concept, but it's actually, when you do the research, when you look into it, when you just listen to the actual words of some of these top AI execs and so on, and futurists at different organizations like Google and Palantir and others, you just actually realize, this is sinister as hell. This is sinister as hell, and it's being sold as this brilliant thing when it's actually replacing us. It's literally meant to replace us. That's the end goal of this. It's absolutely insane. And this last story I've got intertwines with this perfectly, really, because you're talking about AI being used in public services and so on, and some can argue that AI can help in certain areas. And there may be some justification to say that in some areas, like any technology or lots of technology, it can help in some areas. But as we've said, the ratio where it's become the master, not the servant, is already over the tipping point there. And with AI, the amount of involvement and integration it has into our daily lives already has gone past the point where it's safe or needed. It's way over the top. And this is a really fascinating one, mate, because we've spoke about many a time. If you want to bring about an outcome, you create chaos in whatever the subject is so that the outcome you want can be offered as a solution. See the immigration crisis, they offer a digital ID. all those sorts of things. Well, here you go. This is a hilarious one, really, when you break it down. So, UK to use AI to stop adult migrants posing as children. Now, here, a child is defined as somebody 18, under 18, essentially. So 17 or low or under. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say most of the time when you look at somebody, you can make a pretty good judgment on whether they're under 18. Not 100%, obviously, but you can make a pretty good judgment. According to this, the border police here in the UK only get 44% of the times right.
Well under half.
6% of migrants that have come into the UK in the last 2 years that have claimed to be children are not. That's not a margin of error. That is stupidity, or that's a deliberate tactic. That's a deliberate agenda. And when you have a deliberate agenda that causes chaos, then you can offer your solution, which is, well, AI won't be subjective, will it? It'll use various different metrics to decide somebody's age. So it's going to be a lot more effective and a lot more accurate than a human being. Well, yeah, if the human beings are idiots, or if they are too scared to say what the truth is, or if they are working to a set of parameters that don't allow them to really find out. There's so many questions you could ask. But anyway, the government plans to use AI technology to verify the age of migrants that arrive in the UK in an attempt to stop adults pretending to be children. If these migrants are just, asylum seekers, refugees, people that want help, why are they pretending to be children anyway? Mental. The report carried out by the government's independent immigration inspector found cases where adult migrants have been classified as children, and very, very rare cases where children have been wrongly identified as adults. Basically, they are talking about doing this to allow more accurate age estimation, as I've said. Well, I don't know what the parameters are at the moment. So if I turned up now as an illegal migrant in Dover and I said I'm 16, how are they and I don't have any documentation, because as you know, they never have any documentation. How are they asking and proving or disproving whether I'm 16 or not? Because if it's taken on your word, or it's, taken on some very, very flimsy things that could easily be manipulated to play the system, then you can see why these numbers are so insane. And again, this ties in to a number of stories that we've spoken about over this program, which is they are trying to make you think that AI and technology is better than humans. It has less margin for error than humans. It gets things right. It doesn't get things wrong like human beings do. It doesn't have emotional investment in things like humans do. It doesn't have the capacity for free thought like humans do to come to its own conclusions. It will just do what you ask it to do. So again, it's creating that illusion, isn't it? That we need this to do things because we're too stupid to do them. When we're not, this clearly happens because of a policy that's been put in place that allows it to happen. I'm not being funny. You don't get 44% of the time get it right. There's a margin for error, of course, 90-10 maybe, 85-15 even. That would be a realistic number. This clearly is caused on purpose.
It's totally absurd to think
it's literally mental.
56% of the time they get it wrong. I don't understand. They need facial recognition. So facial age estimation offers a potential rapid and simple means for testing judgments when assessing age. So then who looks at the age of it and looks at that computer and then goes, the computer's got it wrong. Clearly,
says no.
That's not a 14-year-old girl. His name's Albert and he's 96.
He's got a beard.
It's got beard. Do we go with the computers? You say it's undermining human intelligence.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't even know if these numbers are made up. They probably are, but it's just ridiculous to think any excuse to get AI in. When this has been going on for years. We had the woman who years ago, the woman who went into the magic circle and she pretended to be a man for decades until they found out. It's nothing new that now we need facial recognition to know whether they're adults or not. How are you going to confirm that anyway if you've got no data on these people at all? I mean, it's just absurd. It's another reason to make us feel absolutely stupid, which is ridiculous. And the other reason is obviously just to incorporate this into society, where it will be the god of everyone. Trust the AI, and that's what it will be. It's just this is just an absurd one, obviously. Forget the reason why they're coming into this country. That's one thing. Forget the fact they're coming over here illegally. Forget the fact that, they're coming over and we don't know where they are. We don't even know where they are. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know their criminal background. We can't even tell if they're an adult or a child now. Like, it's absurd. Any reason to get this technology in is ridiculous.
Yeah, when you break it down, it's literally mad. In an island nation like this, solving an issue of illegal immigration is the easiest thing to do if you actually want to solve it. You could literally solve this crisis today. You could solve it today if you actually wanted to solve it. You just stick some Navy ships in the middle of the channel. It's about 18 miles wide. It's not big. Just stick a couple of Navy ships out there. You're investing enough in flipping defence. You're sending all these weapons away to fund wars in Ukraine that have nothing to do with us, and to fund a genocide in Israel, which is nothing to do with us, when the opposite should be happening in that case. Should be sanctioning the hell out of them and more. While you can't defend an 18-mile border from an invasion, which is what it is. It is an invasion. So it's just mad. You can tell so many examples of this when the issue or the happening is meant to happen. It's part of the agenda, because there's no appetite to solve it when it's so easy to solve. So easy to solve. And you can apply that to many things that we see this government, previous governments, and governments across the world refuse to acknowledge. If they're refusing to acknowledge an obvious problem that would be really easy to resolve, that's your massive red flag that what is happening is part of the agenda, and it's meant to happen, and it's not meant to be solved. And it's clear that across so many different examples, but in particular in this one here, this is meant to happen. And you can argue whether it's to change the cultural breakdown of the country. You can argue whether it's to cause chaos. You can argue whether it's to deliberately wind up the indigenous population, which you're seeing as well. Hence why you're seeing protests erupt right across different parts of the nation. Whether it's to, really poke people in the chests at the unfairness of it. Got nothing to do with race. It's basic unfairness of it. And, whether it's to make people feel more and more isolated and like they have no voice, whatever your explanation for why this is being allowed to happen, probably, in my opinion, a combination of all of them, it's very clear it's being allowed to happen, because this was supposedly the immigration election last year. It was all about that. And we're now a year on, and it's even worse. It's clearly not something they wanted or are going to deal with. Otherwise, as I've said, you could solve it today. You could stop another boat coming across the channel right now if you actually wanted to. Really straightforward. But they don't.
Nope. And as you say, it ticks off many, many, many boxes of the global overall agenda, not just so. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't come out with the excuses they've got to come over here, because there's so many people on their land that is so heavy it's sinking. So they need to come over here. Like that's how stupid they think they are. And then you'll get the ones over here go, they've got to get them off our land because we're sinking. It's too heavy. Oh. It's just absurd. And as you say, it ticks off so many boxes of the overall agenda that it's unreal. But again, as we said at the start, if people don't understand the overall agenda and what's supposed to happen here, it just looks random and unorganized and stupid. But it's not. It's actually incredibly complex if you don't know the ideology. But it's blatant as well.
Yeah, it is. We need to all go and live in Lieberland, mate. Set up shop. Gareth's been. He says lovely. It's great. Right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in with us this morning. I hope we've not depressed you too much. It is difficult. These things are happening, and we need to be informed about them. We need to be, have the knowledge and understanding of them, so that we don't see them as random and don't let ourselves get hoodwinked, as many will. So, unfortunately, you do need to talk about these subjects and stay informed. Doesn't always, it's not always what you want to hear, especially early in the morning, but it is important, because knowledge and using the knowledge is the power, as we all know. Nice one, Rich. Me and you are back on Friday. You're back with Gaz tomorrow. head over to iconic.com to check out all the shows that we've been releasing this week. And head over to shop.iconic.com and check out our coffee range. Use the code TRENDIN to get 10% off. All the proceeds of that come back into this program and allow us to continue talking to you every single morning and hopefully inspiring you more than not. We'll see you then. Thanks for your time.